Hello, everybody. I'm Dean Takahashi. I'm the lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat, and happy to be here, at least in the kind of metaverse, the Zoom metaverse. Sad I'm not out at Toy Fair, but digital is part of the future, right? So here we are. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, I used to escape from reality by reading science fiction a lot. So I read Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, and, watched Westworld, enjoyed Blade Runner, and eventually Ready Player One. And as I said at our recent event on the metaverse, where we had 30 different talks on the metaverse, I didn't realize these were all part of my metaverse education. And so it was like homework for today as well. And I define the metaverse as a shared, persistent, real-time, and social online space that has its own economy and feels like you're inside an immersive and interconnected world. And it's not just one world, it's a whole collection of them. So an individual metaverse effort is more like a metaverse application, I guess, or a game. And a lot of people also say that NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, are the first stop on the road to the metaverse. They can give us things like interoperability. We'll see how everybody's sort of dipping their toes into this water now. And I think toys are a prime candidate to be adapted for the metaverse, particularly because they're already pretty far along on the road of phygital, or physical goods and digital goods. So I'd like to have our panelists now introduce themselves, and let's start with Jeremy.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Pidower. I'm the Chief Brand Officer at Jazwares, and I'm a lifelong collector, and I'm a lifelong manufacturer, as it turns out, of toys, and primarily physical toys and collectibles. So what's happening in the metaverse right now and the evolution of it is that we are in the earliest stages. It is primarily a scenario where you're using one sense, your visual sense and your visual acuity, and it's very much still collectible driven. Now there are games. Roblox is a phenomenal game that you could argue is a metaverse driven game. We're the global master toy partner there. But then there are other things like Fortnite, where there's been transactions and skins that have been happening for many, many years in a free-to-play environment where they upcharge. But what's going to happen with the metaverse over the next 30 years, if you could imagine what's happened to console gaming over the last 30. So we went from a Pong experience to a full-on Oculus style or PS5 where you're fully plugged in, to a universe that is not necessarily absolutely adapting and responding to you. But 30 years from now, perhaps it'll be all five senses in a full-on universe that you plug into and fully experience, well beyond some of the cursory ways that you are now.
Mm-hmm. And Jacqueline, can you introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Vong. I am the co-founder and president of Playology International. Namely, I do things for kids-specific brands like the Wiggles, but I'm very excited and a newbie in the metaverse. I think my interactions are watching Wreck-It Ralph a few times, as well as maybe playing Second Life back in the day. But I am privileged to be an agency that gets to work with amazing franchises in all different scopes of it. And I'm working with a project called Chain Guardians, which is an anime cyberpunk inspired ecosystem on the blockchain, which has an RPG game. They have their own token. They have their own metaverse, which we're doing our first pass and preview of. And we're creating digital goods. I'm representing Chain Guardians, one of our smart wearables right now. And I am absolutely involved in all the drops on what physical and digital goods and how to fuse them along in this world. And it's ever changing. It is a developing world. And I am constantly a student and learning how to evolve and understand this world as it changes minutes and minutes.
Awesome. And Cole, please introduce yourself as well.
Yeah. Hey guys. So I'm the founder and CEO of both the Hacks competitive video gaming brand and consumer products company, as well as creator of Wooshi World NFT and Toshiverse Labs. And just to give a quick overview on, how, I got to where I am now with Toshiverse. So my mandate, from the start with Hacks was to serve the competitive video gaming industry globally. And that included bridging, the chasm between physical and digital. So, as pertinent to what you were saying, phygitals are going to be really, really big in 2022. And on the Hacks front, we're developing technology to make that a seamless process. Obviously, you don't want to do too much phygital because you're going to cut into your NFT margins. So you're already making that high margin revenue. It's a shame to then, do everything with phygitals, but that happens to be integrated within a rarity system. So that brought, on Toshiverse Labs and the creation of Wooshi World. And Wooshi World NFT was a personal project of mine, which I created to basically represent the undercurrent of global esports and all the underlying illusions within, the inner communities and ethos within the space. So, we had some success with that project. We sold out with under 2 days, and that has its own respective play to earn roadmap, in which we're creating a lot of cool technology around on the blockchain. With my background in licensing and fashion and blockchain, I basically incepted this new co called Toshiverse Labs, which Wooshi World is an affiliate client. And what we do is we basically launchpad the world's biggest brands, not just launch their projects and tokenize their products, but we also build alongside them and build that creative technology I was talking about. Because I feel nowadays everyone wants to launch projects and it's very saturated. So the new niche is actually building, and that's where things get interesting, and that's how we push the culture forward. So just simply put, that's my that's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks for the intro. Let's start with Jeremy. I think on these questions, we're all sort of starting in the real world today and then sort of making our way towards this metaverse idea, like how these things are going to evolve, I guess. Like if you could maybe just start with like how will digital collectibles impact physical collectibles as a marketplace? Thanks.
It's interesting. Digital collectibles, I believe, will just be an incremental layer. When you are a fan or a collector and you're establishing your fandom, having the opportunity to show that behind you, as you can see behind me, there's various collectibles, or when you're in an office setting, the adult collector tends to really like to affiliate with the things that they're following, whatever it is that they find interesting, whatever community they're a part of. And every one of these collectibles truly is driven by a community-based scenario. So when I look at digital and the impact on physical, I break it down between kid and adult. For kids, it's truly minimal, the impact. I mean, it'll be a new layer, but kids are really, the tactile element of play and the features and the play patterns of play never go away. They didn't go away with video games. They don't go away with handheld consoles. They haven't gone away with mobile applications, and it won't go away with a metaverse application as well, or an NFT oriented scenario where people have a reward system or whether they have a collectible system with their NFT programs. But for the adult, I do believe the other thing that could happen is that there are a tremendous number of new collectors, like Vivi, which is a project that I invested in, is now up to 2 million users. And of their 2 million users, the community is made up of a lot of people who never collected physical goods ever. And a lot of females who specifically were never part of the collectible universe, who now find this new opportunity, kind of a reset button, to be a part of something they kind of felt left out of. And the purchase intent in the physical universe has increased significantly. And personally, the gender neutrality of collecting, for someone like me, who was a collector my whole life, I wish that had happened when I was like 18 instead of 48, and because I maybe would have had a life in high school. But yeah, that's it. You know, I break it up between kid and adult, and I see it as a new layer. I don't see it as being disruptive to physical collectibles at all.
And I guess as far as just how you do physical goods, phygital goods today, Jacqueline, you want to tackle that?
I think it was really interesting what Jeremy was saying, how, you know, there's a layer between kids and parents, but traditionally it was always driven from a physical good, and the add-on was that virtual or digital good. And it's interesting how everything is evolving into a digital driven purchase into physical goods. And that's where I see the fuse of phygital is. And so, for instance, this Chain Guardian shirt is connected in many ways. It's connected to an NFT, a unique NFT. And in the future, it will be connected to a superpower that you can unlock within the game. So for instance, one of the other items that for the Chain Guardians project that I'm working on are physical sneakers. We have these amazing high tops that have specific artwork. They unlock already a unique NFT, but as you buy them inside your digital world, you will have a special attack move. And then inside the metaverse that we're creating, you'll have a special dance. And so we are integrating all kinds of utility and functionality into what we consider phygital goods to add that extra degree of collectability, of appeal, the rarity and exclusiveness to it. I mean, there are so many bigger brands in the space. For instance, Snoop Dogg, he started as an investor and an anonymous NFT collector, and now he's partnered with another project called Sandbox for land, and people are fighting over land next to him in this meta digital space. So it's just fascinating to watch as, you know, just an observer, but also participating in this economy.
Interesting. And Cole, do you have anything that sort of build on from what they've already said?
We could
no, of also course. Get to your own approach here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, look, digital collectibles are the future for many reasons, but one notably, obviously, the carbon footprint overall, you know, is much less impactful than that of physical products. Not to say you want to count out physical products; they're always still going to be there. But it's sort of, you know, it's sort of taking a reverse, right? And nowadays, you know, before, well, I should take it back. Like, kids used to go to the park, you know, and they used to meet up and socialize. And now, I mean, the metaverse already exists, and it's been existing. Besides even Roblox, I mean, you know, you play video games, you're in a Fortnite lobby. I mean, you're showing off your skin or your wearable. I mean, that's really, you're basically flexing your gear, right? Or what you'd basically be wearing at school or at the park or at the playground or whatever metaphor or whatever example you want to use. But I think, you know, taking that behavior in mind, right? You just know that, you know, going on the basis of skins. I mean, you own a skin, but you can't sell that skin. Now, when you're talking about NFTs, you're empowering those same kids, that new generation, to not only empower them from, you know, a marketplace standpoint and able to, let's say, be like liquidate their assets in which they put their time into video games and they earn these things, right? They're able to now profit off of them, which is, you know, a totally different perspective. And that's, you know, I mean, leading us more into the play to earn sector, but I think NFTs have a very important and imperative segue into that. But just coming back to where these kids hang out, I mean, the metaverse is just a natural next step for that. And the sustainability, as I mentioned, that's one component for a better future. But overall, you know, that's sort of what's happening. And I could say, you know, for the projects that we're working on as well, you know, we're integrating wearables in a very wearables that aren't just, you know, with infinite supply, but wearables that you can also collect as well. Like, I was a big collector of KAWS, you know, Bear Bricks, KAWS companions, Jordan sneakers. You know, I loved all that stuff, you know, through my teens. I'm only 27, but that was still over a decade ago, right? But now it's more so like, what's in your wallet? You know, you know, I would go to restaurants or different places, and I would offer people my NFTs. Like, I would have CyberKongs or I'd have apes in my wallet, and I would just, you know, make jokes or make fun at, hey, what if I just sent you this NFT? Do you have a MetaMask? They'd say, oh, we don't take that, sir. It's just, I like to poke fun at it, but really nowadays for the kids, and, you know, for people that know, it's sort of like, that's where the value's at. It's all on my phone. It's all digital. It's nothing tangible. It's not like, you money. Like I personally don't keep much liquidity in cash. It's either crypto or it's digital assets, but I still keep tangible, real assets as well. But when it comes to fiat and cash, it's sort of redundant in my life on where, it's and even in the business and the industry in which I'm working in. So, yeah.
You'll be right at home in El Salvador, where Bitcoin is the national currency, right?
There you go. And I think, by the way, NFTs as an application on the blockchain, just like email, right? On the internet and Web 2, it's just, these things are just going to keep populating, and it's going to go above and it's going to transcend NFTs. And it's only going to drive the demand for cryptocurrency even further. But at least now you have something that you can actually seamlessly use cryptocurrency or DeFi with a real application in which you can receive something digital on in your digital wallet. So I think that's a very cool factor. And again, I can get into later, the corporate side of things and why it's important. But yeah, you let me know. I don't want to talk for too long.
Yeah, this one's more open-ended for anyone. I sort of remember back to the Skylanders days and the Disney Infinity as well, and I remembered all of the challenges they had with just keeping physical inventory of all these different toys. Like they made them so customizable, but on the other hand, they wound up with a gigantic SKU list, and that proved to be very problematic at retail, I think. But I think we're moving into this world where we've got digital inventory now, and so and we are with NFTs also doing individual items and unique items that are one of a kind. So I'm curious about that transition, just like, from the days when you had to worry about a physical inventory to now what you're going to see in the future. Anybody want to tackle that first?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. I mean, starting a toy company or being involved in an early stage organization in a space where you're manufacturing is treacherous. You have taken bets that are primarily on properties that exist. You're taking inventory, you're relying on buyers to take it, you're relying on consumers to buy it. And it perpetuates season after season after season. As you get bigger and bigger, it's always treacherous until you hit a point where you're, a very profitable. And at that point in time, you can take some hits. But that's a hard place to get, I mean, and moreover, the toy category, toys and collectibles, is $80 billion global category, growing historically at a couple points a year, which essentially means everybody's battling over the same dollars. So when you're taking inventory in a category that's got a lot of scale, but tends to have moderate growth, you have some real challenges. There are certainly enormous benefits when you have low barriers to entry in an area of business. But on the flip side of that, whenever you have low barriers to entry, you have an enormous number of competitors. So when you look at the collectible NFT space and you look at these collections that, 4 years ago started out with something like CryptoPunks, and then, last April was Bored Ape Yacht Club, and World of Women came shortly after that. And you have a few really big ones that stick out. For every one of those, you've got hundreds or thousands of programs that are languishing with extremely low floors that have barely gotten out of the gates, where people are losing money. So there's a real scale here, right? The scale is that when you have scenarios where you have inventory and you have buyers and you have all of those challenges, you have fewer competitors in the space, and the ones that are there tend to be very credible. On the flip side, when you have a low barrier to entry, literally on the floor, and you have people saying these really highfalutin words that everybody questions, like, what does that really mean? A lot of it's crap. And so what you have to do is parse through it, because everyone's going to seem like a genius and the bar is on the floor. But I can tell you the future of this, there are very few, very meaningful properties that will be the next many, many, many billion-dollar franchises that are born from this. I think we could see some and we can identify some, but 95, 98% of the NFT programs that launch, I think almost everyone admittedly realizes will be non-existent as we go forward. Just because, again, 6 months ago to now, for every program that existed, there's probably 50. And if you look at 6 months from now versus today, for every program that exists, there'll be 50. So when you have 2,500 to 1 over the course of a year, which is approximately the pace, you can see where that goes. So yes, physical inventory is a challenge, but sometimes it's also a blessing to be in a competitive category because you have a lot more certainty in who you're dealing with.
And piggybacking on Jeremy's exact words, really, it's the inventory is a proof of concept. You know, you sell out, you have a proof of concept, and then you have that that case to go back to a buyer or retailer with respects to what Jeremy was just saying, with all the competition out there, because it's so easy to create these NFTs. You have to have a pretty solid strategy for discovery, for amplification, for people to buy it. And what, as a proof of concept for, you know, our first drop, it was really interesting to see how little people were willing to spend real US fiat money on digital or physical goods. They were really willing to, you know, use their wallets and their cryptocurrency against all of that. So we always have to factor in the volatility of that and ensuring that if we have hard costs to pay our vendors and suppliers, how would we mitigate the risks in terms of not losing our shirts literally on, or on the merchandise that we're creating digitally, and all that marketing. And so it was very interesting to have these proof of concept cases, really, when we're thinking about it. And we really need to rethink how we would strategize community-based and how we would enter the market with a strategy that works.
Cole, did you want to weigh in as well, or?
Yeah, no, I could. I think, you know, I think companies that have a proven concept or physical product will be the biggest benefactors if they understand the digital marketplace, right? So I don't think it's I think you know, agreeing with what Jacqueline said. Obviously, you want to mitigate that risk as much as possible. You don't want to lose your shirt, but if you're going to usher yourself into the metaverse with a proven concept, then you are setting yourself up for more success. And you got to, again, you got to be diligent. You got to roadmap, you know, these things properly and what you want to do in the digital space. And that's why a lot of companies that want to enter, you know, have to understand the caveats, and they have to make sure they understand the competitive landscape and what's going on. But I guess really my whole point is there is an asset to having a physical footprint.
Yeah, it's interesting to see some parallels to the real world, I guess, with things like limited edition NFTs, right? The people are just sort of trying things out, and the notion that you know, like, you have manufacturing costs in the real world, but gas fees for minting NFTs are considerable if you're using Ethereum, right, as your platform. I think eventually that's going to go away as you know, other kinds of layer 2 solutions come around, or become more popular, or they just, you know, transition off of the high energy consumption. But you know, it's not a great thing to be selling your, say, digital toy when you have a $50 gas fee, right, that goes with it. So the parallels are just kind of interesting, and I'm curious, like, how soon do we get past some of this very early start? And what kinds of things might go away, and then what kinds of things from the real world will still come along, I guess. If you think of inventory costs as the same as gas fees or something like that. So
Dean, I think to go to what you're saying, one thing that's always certain in a very crowded marketplace is that pricing tends to pare down. Right now, you have new programs that are launching and it's 0.4 ETH, and you look at it and say, well, 0.4 doesn't seem like a lot, but you convert that to dollars and you're spending $1,500, you're spending $1,200, depending on what the price of ETH is to participate. In addition, you have gas fees that could range from $40 to $300 on a simple transaction, depending on how busy the network is. So the future of NFTs in my opinion, are the high-end licensing where you're using that as part of your overall portfolio play. It's a line on your P&L for digital. There will be some serious collectible programs that launch, but this is going to become more and more and more commoditized. Again, low barrier to entry, easy to get in, and think of it in terms of a continuity program. If you look at historical marketing programs where you've got a scenario where you're collecting points, or you're collecting proof of being there, that's where a lot of this is going. And again, not necessarily talking metaverse as much as I'm talking about the idea of continuity associated with NFT programs. But it's certainly not a scenario where everything is going to be 0.25, 0.4 ETH and secondary market benefits that are through the roof. We just have a tremendous amount of demand. We have supply that's catching up to that demand rapidly. And again, over the course of time, pricing really pushes things down. There's no question in a competitive marketplace. It happens every time in every market in the history of humankind.
And I think to add to that, sorry, I keep piggybacking, mass adoption. I think that we're in pretty early. And so there's a lot of challenges on how we even speak this language, how we even interact with the different currencies, the different types of wallets. And so as we start to see more and more programs and projects that have easier ways to educate the masses on how to interact with their currencies, how to buy, how to sell, how to stake, how to earn. There's a lot more strategies within projects that people are incentivizing, or the projects are incentivizing people to play to earn their token or play to stake their tokens. And so there's that loop economy that goes back and forth within their ecosystem. It's an interesting world, and these are strategies that we just have to continue to evolve and build and get those mass adopters inwardly into it when this becomes more commonplace.
Interesting. As we think more about the metaverse, I'm curious, Jacqueline, like how do you take something that's a safe, younger brand experience and bring it into something like the metaverse, which is wide open, I guess?
I think that's a huge concern. I consult on a lot of the younger preschool brands, and I think that's a big question in getting them involved with an NFT. I think NFTs are great for amplification of brands. I think there's monetization there, but how do we keep it safe? I mean, there's already so many bad case examples of gambling and seeing kids getting involved and being persuaded to gamble, or that bullying aspect. And so what really I would recommend, I really love that Roadblocks model where it's a closed gated community where there's a safe infrastructure and that it's contained. I think what Fortnite has been doing with the experiences, evolving from their games into experiences with Travis Scott, let's say, for the example, and doing that eventainment or the live concerting. I think those are ways to ensure that there's a level of comfort. Also, I think the safeguards always, with the wallets, you always have your parents, protecting that wallet and ensuring that you only get a few tokens. But really, it's all about mass adoption, understanding, because there is a lot of publicity and PR out there that is misleading. And it could be a PR nightmare for the companies that don't think about, aren't forward thinking about their persuasion methods. So I do think there's a lot to consider, but it's not all negative. There's always people like us sitting in, and ensuring that there are safeguards that will be met when we're thinking about kids getting into the metaverse.
And Jeremy or Cole on that safety in the metaverse point?
Yeah, look, I think it's absolutely critical that when it comes to our kids, we do whatever that we can to protect them from the baddies of the universe. And we were joking before this chat that Discord is a tremendous tool. It is an amazing community-based tool, but you have to have your guard up at all times, because there is the more immersive an experience is, the more ways people can pick your pocket. the more immersive an experience is, the more ways you have intimate engagement with other people. And frankly speaking, some of these startups will have folks that are trailing behind that are just there to try to be opportunistic. Kids need a heightened layer of protection. So, but it's interesting though, I mean, I just think back, I think when apps came on the scene, how hard toy companies tried to make apps integrate into toys, and how it really never played off significantly. I mean, like Skylanders was a totally different experience. It was a console-based game where your toy was basically a trophy, and it worked together beautifully. It was $1 billion opportunity. It was phenomenal. But there's going to be a lot of force fitting, and there's going to be a lot of people trying to figure out how to make this work. So as long as we're going out of our way to protect kids from the baddies that are out there, I think that we're going to go through various degrees, a lot of failure before we see some success in terms of the way we integrate either NFT type programs into toy-based play.
And Cole, how about, yeah. I think you're on mute. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I agree with it all. I mean, safety is super important for any company to enter properly. And I can just say, from personal experience, I've been a part of a ton of projects. I've done, myself, I've conducted business dealings in the underworld, as I call it, on Discord, for even my own project and for projects that I've invested in. And in order to navigate through, it takes some of that experience and that knowledge, and then, implementing that and putting in some guardrails like in your Discord, is super important. So I think, having an immersive sort of experience and a gamified experience in your Discord is very important. But like, everyone here is saying, I mean, putting in the right safety protocols is also very key. And that's what, we're also doing at Toshiverse, right? It's not just, how do we launch a project? It's, what are all the caveats and all the dangers to children or to young kids on the internet. So yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say about that. But when it comes to everything else, I mean, we provide like a 360 solution. So it's not sort of a one and done, right? We don't like leave a project hanging. It's sort of a like boutique style launch. So yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say there. And, the tech hasn't come to scale yet. So it's a bit hard when I say building. It's like, the tech has to catch up, but that's what we're also building on. Like, I've been in this for a while, as well as Jeremy. So we have been working on some key technologies surrounding the blockchain. And depending on if you're a play to earn or play to stake or anything around that sort of roadmap, or you're there to provide some sort of digital experience, I mean, we just want to streamline that technology and supercharge existing communities. And I think social capital is the most important thing in this space, not only in NFT, but in NFT in the blockchain space, but in the real world. I mean, you could usher in your existing audience, even if it needs to be revitalized. But there's a lot of brands out there that sort of, are not culturally relevant anymore, but could sort of revolutionize themselves in this new world, right? And approaching it properly and, making sure you're, exercising prudence, I think is very key. And that's something we facilitate. So, I mean, if you want to ask me about I have a ton of experience in buying projects, launching projects, supporting on projects, all types of, whether it's NFT with an artist by vocation or NFT utility project on many different avenues. I mean, I've done it all. I've been through it all. So yeah, that's it from my end, really.
Yeah, thank you. We're getting down to our just sort of last minutes here. And I think there's one question we want to end up with, but I did want to sort of run this question by you folks as well. Like, how do we know that consumers really want NFT versions of what we have now? Like, I guess what we're offering. And the example I bring up is that in video games, the hardcore gamers have reacted very negatively lately to announcements of NFTs in hardcore games, as if it's sort of like a foreign object or something that is part of somebody's monetization scheme, I guess. And so the hardcore gamers are rejecting it, at least here in the US. I mean, I think in places like South Korea, they're going bananas for it, right? So how do you know your consumers are going to take to it?
Yeah, so I mean that's also it's a great point. I mean, if you look at Ubisoft, right? You look what happened with the guys from Final Fantasy. I mean, they got a ton of downvotes because they just looked like an entity, a central entity that was just trying to capitalize on some quick capital, right? So I mean, they got sort of they got ushered out of the metaverse, right? So I think it's really got to be methodical, and I think the storytelling and what you're trying to communicate has to be clear, right? And from my standpoint, if you're a game developer, a publishing company, you got to say like, look, we're doing this to empower you guys as builders and to give you more ownership. From a CC0 standpoint, it's really taken over in the space. You got to sort of lend your IP a little bit more than just, hey, we own it all and we're going to license it to some other central players. You got to let the actual consumers, who are ultimately the real players, play. So yeah, it's interesting, but again, you sort of have to. We're going in a place where you got to bend the knee and you got to concede a little bit. So I don't think a lot of the big guys are willing to do that just yet, and I think they're noticing. If they don't, they're not going to be able to adapt right here to the new trends.
All right.
Because a lot of these guys and a lot of these kids, they're woke, right? They're not dumb. And I just wanted to also dichotomize one thing. There's the corporate gamer and there's the DGen type gamer, and you could put them into buckets, and you could create more segments within. But put simply, right, the DGens are the people that aren't sort of they're not ambitious about their career path. So they have a lot more time to spend on the internet and to just play games. But a lot of the corporate gamers, I'm just simply putting it, right? I mean, we can talk about the nuances here. But a lot of the corporate gamers, they appreciate, new technology, and they appreciate the fact that if you could play and you can earn, well, then it's worth putting my time into, and I could spend more time.
Right,
so I think,
Cole, let's
the
stop
message has to be
at that point, Cole, and let's transition to our last question. So should every toy manufacturer be thinking about NFTs and making NFTs right now? Jeremy, go ahead and start. Yeah. A minute or less for everybody on this.
Yeah, sure. I think the toy companies should be well aware and be well thinking about how they might want to integrate, but also to be very cautious because the market has evolved very quickly and primarily around the concept of investment-based collectible systems. That is not the longevity. That is not going to be the forever use. NFT, the concept of NFTs are very, very broad. It's a distribution system for everything from audio to visual, where the original owner and creator has a long stream of revenue from secondary market sales. But it's certainly not going to be a scenario where everything that you do has massive secondary market value. It's just going to be a really nice way to track and trace. So jump in, be careful, be aware, keep your eyes open, and don't make it the major part of your business until you've had some successes.
Awesome. Jacqueline, do you want to hit that one quickly too?
Honestly, like Jeremy said, if you toy companies should be aware of the ramifications. Right now, NFTs in this space have a PR problem. I think a lot of people are looking at Meta and Facebook and selling inventory, selling data as a problem. I think the NFTs should be used to generate interest, to amplify, to maybe create that digital collectability strategy, like a digital trading card. But yes, we should definitely be mindful of the storytelling, as Cole was saying, and ensure that there is a strategy beyond just the initial purchase and how we expand it with safeguards for the kids in the community.
And let's close with Cole. Do you have an answer on this as well about should every toy company get into it? Yeah.
I mean, it's back to a similar point I was making before. And, certain IPs will lend better to the metaverse than others. Especially, toys that are already collectibles, could even be like even Hot Wheels, just as an example. But again, you have to, roadmap, what utility you're going to put behind it and what you're building for the future, not just thinking about your primary launch, right? And grabbing quick capital. But, I will say, and this is really from a commercial standpoint, I'm talking more to the corporate world. you definitely got to do your research, and you got to do it now. There's going to be market evolution. There's going to be corrections, but marking your ink in history now, I think, is super important. And I think expending resources on it, to learn, or just allocate, or to just incept a department to work with the right partners. And the space is all about a shared economy and about collaboration. So all very important points to keep in mind. Not to be so internal about everything. So yeah, that last one, I would just say, it's a thing you got to start to get used to in the metaverse. Whether it's a new concept and you're an existing management company and you got a portfolio of brands, or whether you have one brand, there's not to say you can't start opening up different commercial rights, or nuanced commercial rights to that brand in the metaverse or digitally. So I mean, I'm going to give a good example here. I mean, look at let's get an example like Dracula, for instance, right? Like, look how popular Dracula is, how many derivatives there are of that, that concept in those movies, and how, so as long as you empower the builders and you give freedom to the people and you do it properly, you have the right partners, you could do a ton of volume in the aftermarket, which will be a lot more fruitful for you than even perhaps physical products with lower margins. Sorry to do this. I know this is so counterintuitive to decentralization, but if we're talking to the corporate world, I think they have to understand the perks and the caveats. So just those are my closing statements there.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.